Hello students, welcome to week 8 for COM555. This week we're looking at digital media effects and more of the some of the physical and cognitive as well as psychological and emotional effects digital media, social media, and exposure to things like that have on our communication. As we look through the week 8 agenda, you should feel very proud you've made it to this point in the semester. We don't have any formal reading assignments. You're using your sources for your critical assignment as the general reading assignment, as well as watching the videos we have posted, because we are working on a tight deadline for our critical assignment and our discussion board number 8 this week. As you can see, the critical assignment is due on Friday. That's a firm deadline, and please make note of that. It's significantly different from when most of our assignments are due, which are on Sundays. Your discussion board number 8 has the same deadlines as most discussion boards. Your original post is due Friday with your replies due on Sunday. We're watching 2 videos that are directly related to the discussion board number 8 assignment. As you look at discussion board number 8, you do need to know you're writing at least 400 words about some of the main points of the TED Talks that you're watching this week. So we're watching 2 videos on how you could do without the smartphone and why somebody doesn't use a smartphone. And what I want you to do is to look at those videos from a scholarly perspective and analyze them, provide a post that has some analytical information about what you think about those TED Talks. Is what they presented feasible? Do you think that there's some grains of truth in there that we should adhere to? What are the main points of what they're getting at? How do these relate to the course contents, particularly what theories come into place that you see, some communication theories that they may have used without even realizing? And what are the major assertions of the speakers, and how does the scholarship support or not support their assertions? Provide me with at least 2 research studies that support or maybe dispute what they're saying, and just in general provide a reflection of the video. So this is supposed to get you into what some people are consuming and taking to heart in terms of digital media usage, and providing some scholarship to provide an argument for either way in support or not supporting what those videos go through over. As you look at the critical assignment, it's important to know that you're going to, if you should already be well into this, but if you are not already, write a 10 to 12 page paper using APA where you're discussing the effects of digital communication on society, specifically drawing on relations to the course text and a content analysis of scholarship. So what that means in a nutshell is that you will need to incorporate at least 3 concepts from each text, groundswell and networked, as well as providing an overview of at least 6 different research studies that agree with some concept you want to pull out of each of those texts. So this paper is an effects of digital communication on society paper. You're going to use groundswell and you're going to use the networked text, and come up with 3 concepts that you took away from both of those texts. They can be the same or different. Just at least 3 that's equally incorporating each of the course texts, and write an analytical critique on these concepts on the effects of digital communication on society. In addition to that, you need to at least include 6 scholarly sources, research studies, that help support what those concepts are that you think of when it comes to effects of digital communication on society. So if you have any particular questions with this, please reach out to me. I'm more than willing to sit down and chat with you on the phone or through email or however to talk about what this paper really means. What I'm looking for, though, is you're writing an effects of digital media paper on society, looking at how digital communication directly affects society in 3 specific ways, using the networked text and the groundswell text, as well as 6 outside sources to support that. Really what you need to do is make a determination of the effects of digital communication strategies and its influence on society. If you have any other questions, please reach out to me. I'm going to provide you with an overview this week of social action media theory. It's a theory that's evolved out of cultivation theory and out of spiral of silence and agenda setting in the last 15 years or so with the advent of social media. And so what happened is Jared Schoening and James Anderson, are the noted scholars behind this theory, determined that we take a community-based approach to media analysis and influence as media scholars. Particularly, audiences cannot be characterized as an amorphous mass. Rather, it consists of numerous highly differentiated communities, each with its own values, ideas, and interests, so their own ideologies. Um, Media content really is interpreted within the community according to meanings that are worked out socially within a group, and individuals are influenced more by their peers than by media. So it's taking agenda setting and cultivation theory and uses and gratifications to next level. It's telling us that audiences consist of numerous highly differentiated communities, and so these communities consist of their own ideologies, and that content is, when it's consumed within the community, is socially interpreted by the group. So if you have a group of friends or your family and you all sit down and binge watch at different times a series on Netflix or Amazon, and you all come together and talk about it, what Showing and Anderson are telling us is that we will be we will socially interpret the communicative messages of this media within our group, and will be more influenced by what the group tells us about it than what the actual media content is. So if you sit down and you watch a show and you may not agree with some of the things, and your family confirms that, you'll be more likely to believe that than what the media content is telling you to believe. And so it's really, really, really fascinating. To do this, they outline 6 premises or 6 principles that we use in social action theory. The first one is that meaning is not the message itself, but is produced by interpretive processes of individuals. This is very similar, this idea, to what McLuhan tells us about the medium is the message, is that we're not necessarily looking at when we're in digital communication and we're looking at social media and mediated communication in the sense that we're getting out of the interpersonal context. We don't really look at the meaning of the message. This has been confirmed through McLuhan and other theorists and things like that, uses and gratifications, things like that. Well, what Showing and Anderson is telling us is that this is the same. Meaning is not the message itself, but is produced by the interpretive processes of individuals. Particularly, different audiences will interpret or understand what they read and view in different ways. So, for example, if you listen to talk radio programs, may be taken to mean many things depending on who is listening and what their individual backgrounds and the ideologies of the groups they're assigned to believe. So, it's important to know that that messages are produced by interpretive processes of individuals and within the groups they're subscribed to. The second premise and principle of this theory is that meaning of media messages and programs is not determined passively, but is produced actively by audiences. So once we get beyond the point of using this interpretive process of individuals to assign meaning to media, the meaning of particular mediated messages and programs, television shows, things like that, is not determined passively. We don't just, if we're thinking of elaboration likelihood theory, pass it through our peripheral route. We use our central route, and we are very active audience members, critically evaluating what we consume, and within our own groups of people, how we utilize that to assign meaning to messages. Particularly, this means that audiences actually do something with what they view and read. This sounds like a novel concept, and we all assume this, but for a long time within media scholarship and media research, especially in the 20s and 30s and 40s, it was assumed that we are passive audiences and we would believe anything we consumed through media. What we're finding, especially with the use of social media and different digital communication technologies today, is that that's not the case. So we're able to now, through media research, prove what we all thought, that we actually do something with what we view and read. We act as we view something or listen. Some listeners, for example, may turn to talk radio to combat boredom while driving. Others may turn to it late in the evening as a sleep aid. Others still listen to it actively during the day as a means of getting information about current events. What a particular talk radio program means, therefore, is a product of how listeners treat it and what they do with it. So it's not necessarily the idea of we're going to passively accept this information. It's what we do with the mediated message we're consuming, and how we treat it in terms of how much weight and how actively we produce certain meanings to certain messages. The third idea is that meanings of media shift constantly as individuals vary their use of media. So one day I may assign meaning to a particular to listen to talk radio programs differently than I do the next. If I'm listening to it on the way to work to drown out boredom and have some background noise, I may not be listening to it as critically as when maybe I'm actually sitting trying to hear of what something is happening or things of that nature, and because that's my only source of media at the given moment. So this third premises means that sometimes a talk radio program may strictly be entertainment, sometimes serious information, sometimes background noise. Everything, the meaning of the media changes depending on when and how it is used by an individual and perceived within that group. The fourth idea is that the meaning of a program or message may vary depending on the individual. Meaning is also a communal activity. It's something we do within community. This gets into this idea of ritualistic communication, where it's not about what we're saying and it's not about the act of communication, it's rather about the communicative experience, and that it's not about imparting messages to and fro from one another. It's not about sending messages back and forth, but about the communicative experience and the inner experience of what it means to actually build community through communication. And so what this means is that it's part tradition of a group and community and culture. The implication of this is that when you join a community, either by group, by birth or membership, you accept the ongoing activities and meanings of that community group, and your communication becomes an act of community and enjoyment and associated with membership in the group. So the fifth point is that the actions that determine a group's meanings for media contact are done in interaction with the members of its group. In other words, how we act towards media and what meanings emerge from those actions are social interactions. This does not mean that you never watch TV by yourself. But it does mean that how you watch and use TV are part of an ongoing interaction between yourself and others. So we're more likely to turn on the TV and tune into something based off of this active community because somebody recommended it. If you listen to talk radio in the car while you're commuting to work, this pattern is part of a larger web of interactions with people at home and at work. It is a routine that is made possible by a huge network of factors involving work, home, radio, boredom, cars, highways, and so on. So everything is interwoven into a type of community activity. And what they're saying is that the action of media consumption determines groups' meaning for media content are done in interaction with members of the group. Meaning we may consume media and certain types of media individually, but we're not an individualist culture. That how we assign meaning for the media we're consuming, even if it's done individually, is done with some type of interaction within a group. So our thoughts on particular talk show radio hosts, our thoughts on particular news outlets, our thoughts on particular shows are all done within interactions of the members of a group. Finally, the sixth principle tells us that in this premise of social action and media studies is that that the audience consists of numerous interpretive communities, each with its own meaning for what is read, viewed, and heard. So this is just a confirmation of that. Meaning is assigned to based off of numerous interpretive communities, and each interpretive community has their own ideological perspectives of what different media tells us and things of that nature. And so within the rules of the group will determine how and why we may make interpretive decisions on assigning meaning to various media outlets. The researchers really, in this sense, determine that we bring we as communities bring our own meanings about media being studied and how we look at it from different perspectives. This has significant impact on how we utilize media as interpretive and communicative. Really, interpretive communities come into being around a specific media content. In this sense, a community will develop around a shared pattern of consumption, with usually results in common understandings for the content of what is read, heard, or viewed. And so while we look through things in that nature, it's important to know that in types of theories related to social action, theorists like Schoening and Anderson typically believe that humans make sense of themselves and the world through two great semiotic systems, language and action. We use language and actions to make sense of ourselves and the world, both of which are human inventions and social products. So it's a very different approach from the cognitive-based theories you've been reading about and that we've been discussing a lot this semester. Instead of your mind shaping what you do, what you do shapes your mind, and what you can do is what your culture provides. So just try just so when you what you do and how you do things is a result of your culture and your ideological makeup. And so social action media theory tells us that how we assign meaning to media is done in that same similar pattern. As we go, and I wanted to bring this up because I think it has a lot of relevance with what you're doing in your discussion board posts this week, as well as working on particularly your critical assignment. This will be a good theory to bring into it and to kind of look at and to see digital effects of communication and such, and some of the content we've gone through this semester. As you're looking at the week through 8 agenda just one last time, keep in mind that we are reading all of our sources for our critical assignment. We're also watching 2 TED Talks that are directly related to discussion board number 8. Discussion board number 8 is due on Friday with reply posts due Sunday, and our critical assignment is also due on Friday. If you have any particular questions, do reach out early on in the week, and I pray you all have a blessed week, and you should just feel proud of your efforts thus far. The course is wrapping up, and I look forward to interacting with you in the future.